welcome. So I'm Jason Arbon, and I want to talk about digitizing testers. Also, by the way, this feels like the first time I gave a talk about AI and testing, and like the audience was about this size, and the energy was about this level of energy. And then over the years, like it's like entire track conferences, and 80% of the marketing in the space, right, becomes this stuff. So I think you guys are getting to maybe hopefully getting a glimpse of what's coming up in the future. It's what I think is coming. But there's good news and bad news. The bad news is I didn't have a lot of time to prepare this deck, right? So instead, so maybe I could do it next year, Phil, this topic. And I had some old ones because I submit these things to PNSQC in the past, but I keep getting rejected by the committee. So I figured we'd just dig up some old ones. That's okay. So we can vote on these. There's 4 options. One is we could talk about testing versus checking. Let me vote early if it was fantastic. Oh, trust me. We could also talk about the new testing toroid. The pyramid's going out, man. We could talk about the joy of manual regression testing. And the last option is super frosted flaky tests, if anyone's interested. No? All right. That was a bit of a joke. All right, let's talk about digitizing testers. So what you'll actually see is, if I actually connect, is it connected? There we go. There we go. So we'll actually talk about digitizing these testers. So I've had a little bit of free time over the last few months, and this is what I do in my free time, is experiment with these kind of stupid, crazy ideas. It's okay to laugh. It's also okay to just think this is ridiculous. But I think the setting was perfect to share some of the stuff with the world because we're in Portland. There's plenty of mushrooms and other chemicals. So if you have some at your disposal, or check under your seat right now, there may be some mushrooms under there. So just relax, enjoy, go for the ride, and then make fun of it. So what are we all here for, right? And actually, by the way, I haven't done a conference presentation for a long time, Phil. You're like, this guy's a noob again. But basically, like, we come here, why do we come here? To listen to people that act or think that they know what they're doing, and listen to them and try to learn a little bit, right? That's kind of why we're here. But who wants to sit through 4 or 5 hours of listening to Tariq King, right? Talking about API services testing, right? Or performance, or listen to anyone else give their talk. Because that's what happens. Come here, sorry, Phil, but we come here, we learn a little bit, we go back to our office, maybe we have a chance to apply it, maybe we remember something, right? But usually we don't, and guess what? We're never going to be as good as actually Tariq's testing of API services, because that's what he does 24/7, because he's got nothing else to do. So wouldn't it be cool if he did your API testing, right? Or wouldn't it be cool, just to imagine, just again, the mushroom should be taking effect any minute. What if you can have the person that tests the address field at FedEx test your address fields, right? So who has an address field in the app they're testing? Yeah, a few. Some people are in denial. I test the API behind it. I don't test the address field. It'd be cool if that person could test your address field. Because guess what you do? You go like, oh, okay, I'm gonna think of my address, my home address. I'm gonna enter the White House's address, right? Then you're gonna go my grandma's address. Start running out of interesting addresses, right? But these people knows the largest valid address, the largest invalid address ever passed to FedEx, right? Wouldn't they be a better tester for your address fields? Right, on your app, or your first name, last name, all that kind of stuff in an application or your database, right? Because he's done all this fancy stuff. He worked on the worst app in the world, in my opinion, which is the HR software, right? It's all it is a billion form fields, right? Mapping onto a database. Like, that's not fun to test, but he's really, really good at it. Oh, now I'm in trouble. Tariq actually showed up. we missed them. We're not going to go back to previous slides. Avatars coming up though, Tariq. So, and maybe, I've tested search boxes at Bing and at Google both, right? Maybe, humbly, maybe you'd like me to test your search box, right? I might have a couple ideas that you haven't heard or you wouldn't even hear in a presentation. We get the idea here. There's a lot of testing experts that are specialized in areas of testing. right? And what we do today is incredibly inefficient. It's just like slow education, wait for the conference in 4 months. Maybe you learn something, write some notes, take it back to my office. But wouldn't it be better if that person could just test your stuff? So meet virtual, back to that one. But guess what he does? He's really good at API testing, as he claims. He's also the king of game testing, right? Whether it's virtual worlds, metaverse, whatever he's talking about, right? He's really good at testing games. There's another one, like say, I don't know if people know Jana. She's done some amazing work in the last year on some of the most complex cross-platform solutions to testing for solutions I've seen that include like an Android dedicated embedded systems bike that has to connect to a road that connects to a mobile device and video feeds and all at once, right? Like it's pretty crazy, but do you want to relearn everything that she's had to struggle with for 2-3 years? We just want her to do it. So the good news is these things are kind of already starting, right? And the reason is, I've told the story a couple of times, but when I first started working at Google, I was all excited. I gave a presentation to the head of search. I got a meeting set up and it was 2 weeks out. And I went to him, I had a big PowerPoint slide. And the guy is like, just looked at me after like the second slide. And he says, you used to work at Microsoft, didn't you? And I was the most embarrassing moment of my life. But he says at Google, we speak with code. And that's always just really, really stuck with me. So, yeah. Oh, really? Probably. The pictures are good enough. Is that better? Do we think? Check, check, check. Check, check, 1, check, 2. That's what the rockers do, right? It's probably better just to show pictures. Sorry? Freebird, yeah. Heard someone saying that the intro of the last speech or talk should have been AC/DC. I can't hear. Okay, or it's just a troll. It's probably Tariq trolling. Thank you. So anyway, so we said speak with code, and like so that's what I've been doing is being quiet. When people are like, all the people are asking like, what are you doing? Why are you so quiet? I just pretend I've been in Yellowstone, which I have with the kids, but I've also been working day and night on kind of some of these new things to see if they actually work or not. See if it'll actually run. So before we get to that, Phil, you put me on the spot yesterday about being a vegetarian. What's the performance of your homepage load time on PNSQC? Oh, did you look? You dirty rat. I don't know, but it's a little slower than that actually. It's slower. Oh wait, do you want to go back? But kind of close. But Phil, supposedly he cares about testing. He runs conferences. He had several performance presentations today, and he doesn't know his own homepage perf load time, right? He also didn't ask me on which device it was, on what network, but we'll skip that part of it. But what if there was somebody you might recognize who's shall always be remembered, who's moved on to the crypto world, but she's very opinionated about performance, right? So not only can her bot do that testing to load your homepage and see how fast it is, right? And you don't have to write that code and stuff, but her bot can do that, but it can do it for every testing company, right? And every testing conference homepage. So we've got all that data. It's pretty cool. It's real data, real measurements. Most of these people have no idea what their page load time is, but it's because Angie cares about it. And you know why it's yellow versus green? Usually tell somebody your page load time is 1.2 seconds, say, Phil. We'll pretend it's actually what you think it is. Is that good or bad? Quick. Exactly, right? But Angie has an opinion on what's fast enough and too slow and so on. So she can actually judge those metrics herself and mark it as a green as a pass or a yellow warn or a red as a fail. So it's an opinionated person too. Do you want the random person you hired yesterday off the street? Well, or yeah, I guess the street support one, to judge whether your site's fast enough, or do you want an expert like Angie to decide that? So also for fun, so you can test search boxes. We can imagine that. We can imagine clicking around in menus and stuff. But let's also talk some about the harder stuff today, right? Visual AI diffing, right? So what if there's a system and there's the one loser in the world who likes to spend all of his time and on Saturday night, you know, at like 11 till 4 in the morning on Sunday, he likes to do this kind of stuff, and he writes code that looks at a website, finds all the object in it, and then can tell you build over build if anything's changed, right? It's like visual AI testing and diffing build over build. You don't, guess what you can do? You can go to vendors, a sponsor the conference that do awesome work, actually, Apple tools, but like you like you have to set that up. You have to build the tests, connect it to a framework and an SDK, then go up in those dashboards and configure everything, right? It's a lot of work, right? And a lot of time, a lot of setup, and a lot of money. Wouldn't it be better if there's just a virtual robot that just like to do this for you, right? And you go like, well, but my app's special, right? It only, okay, that works on a couple simple apps, but my app's special, and everything's like custom in my application. By the way, I left the bounding boxes on here. I'm waiting for someone to flag it and go like, hey, the rectangles are wrong. This was an early build. I was just kind of testing people at a testing conference, but anyway. So, so that's all good, right? Also, what's one of the hardest problems I think in automation in the testing space, and that's mobile. Like everyone struggles with mobile, even the people that present on their mobile stuff. It's a pain. But what if we reimagined it too? Not only do we have virtual testers, but it was a very purely mobile first approach to the software testing and engineering, right? And by that I mean, here's just some screenshots of me playing around. I've got no UX designer, so I apologize. But on the left-hand side, you can see you pick an app, and then you can pick your test team. So hey, yeah, I want Tariq, I don't want Angie, and I'd like Kevin to be part of this test pass. Sounds like a test manager's job, right? Pick your testers, and then the tests you want them to execute. And it's really crazy complicated. You hit the play button. Wouldn't that be nice, right? And just, it goes and starts testing your site. And then you're at the bar, or you're having dinner, or you're at the soccer game with the kids, and you get an alert on your phone that tells you the test pass is done, right? Why do you have to be in the office tethered to a giant desktop machine, especially when, I missed on the last slide, but the majority of web traffic, especially for top sites, but is mobile. Like we do all of our testing work on a desktop or laptop machine in the office, but our users are all on these mobile devices. It's kind of crazy. And there's PNSQC again, by the way. And again, here's just some kind of mobile alerts and stuff, but just kind of reimagining, but with running code, what could it look like with a mobile first world? So I guarantee there's people watching, they'll be going like, oh, we need a mobile client app and whatever, right? Like over the next 6 to 18 months. So I really do think this will be kind of the wave. You'll see pieces of this appearing in other frameworks and other companies because it's a natural evolution of all this stuff. Not like crazy, interesting ideas. It's just kind of the natural evolution, I think, of software testing and such. So this is an interesting question I thought of too. I think it's interesting. Is, well, why would Tariq do this? Right? And this idea of having like a, what do they call those things? Like a Tamagotchi, right? Version of Tariq. Why would he want to do it? Why would he let me do it? Partly because he knows I'm crazy and it's kind of fun, right? But I talked to several other folks that are kind of testing experts in some area or claim to be, and they thought it was just really a fun idea. And guess what? They also get excited because, like Kevin here, without an in-place pop-up menu, here's his little profile page. Kevin is stuck. He's a brilliant tester, but guess what? He's highly paid and he works as a director, a fancy title and everything. But guess what? He has like 2 apps that he gets to test, just 2. So all that expertise is funneled into just 2 applications. You know, there's billions of web pages, millions of mobile apps, but his value can only be directly applied to the apps that he's testing for and directly responsible for. And even then he has to go through 2 layers of human beings, which have their own opinions and like to go to lunch. So, but the cool thing is Kevin now can look at this, and I showed it to him, he thought, that's kind of cool. Is that, you know, in this case, like you can see he's maybe tested 59 apps as virtual Kevin. So while Kevin's sleeping, the virtual version of Kevin can be testing all these apps, or your app or somebody else's app. So that kind of scope of influence and impact is interesting to these testing kind of experts and leaders. Also for fun is, I also asked them, like all these people, like, hey, like what if you get a cut? I'm just imagining, kind of exploring, right? What if the virtual Tariq, every time he executes a test case, like a little bit changes on the web, right? Or in crypto for Angie, a little bit gets flipped, you keep track. And then say it costs $1.99, less than a cup of coffee to have Tariq test your app. And you send, I don't know, 2 cents, Tariq, was that what we negotiated? I'm kidding. He hasn't seen this. But what if we sent part of that $1.99 to Kevin? So while he's on the golf course, right? And as he finishes that hole, he earns like, you know, 20 bucks that day, right? And then guess what he gets every month? He gets a new set of golf clubs. And his wife doesn't complain about it, right? So it's an interesting thing, I think, is about scaling testers, taking that expertise, finally encoding it into code instead of conferences and talks and videos and all that stuff, encode it directly into bots that can do the testing. Because then you get the best testers doing the best thing and the best portion of their skill set and expertise running on your app. So why would people even want to use this or something? I don't know. By the way, today, not a single person uses it except for me. I'm just kind of coming out, sharing this. Very vulnerable right now. But one thing is, think about everybody but testers. So you guys are the 1% to the 1% of testers, right? You guys have people that are supportive. Like you actually care about testing. You do it full time. You do it at a place that'll even send you to a conference, right? Like that's pretty crazy. Like most testers don't have that opportunity. So you're really the 1%. The testers that are out there that can't go to a conference, guess what? They're not allowed to really think that much, frankly, right? It's just test execution, the joy of regression testing over and over again. But the reality is that most apps are just not tested at all. You think about all the apps in the world, all the websites, there's billions of websites. How many of them have a test team, right? If there's 7 billion websites and every app had one tester, that means everyone in the world must be a tester by definition, right? That's not happening. The room's not even full. So cool thing is they can get a test team in their hand. Like I feel like it's democratizing testing. Give a little bit of test, a little bit of test love to every app in the world. Like why it's almost unfair that it's concentrated on the richest companies and the richest apps. Like everybody can and should be using some form of testing. So I think it kind of opens the door to that, democratizes it a bit. And then you go like, why would testers care about this, right? They go, oh, I can get my performance numbers. Phil's going like, I could hire 3 people and take 6 months and get some performance numbers, right? But he doesn't want to do that. He probably won't get around to it. He's checking the web right now. He's probably not measuring perf of the site. You schedule 3 performance speakers though for the next conference. I'm kidding, Phil. I love you. So, but guess what? Guess what you can do? You take that data and at least you know what your performance numbers are, so you don't get surprised by engineering or somebody external, right? Next time, whenever it comes up, or like the one person I've shared perf data with, like they didn't get back to me for 2 days, and I was like, oh, I guess. He wouldn't care, right? But it turned out he had a conversation with the head of engineering and said, hey, our website's super slow. And not only that, it's slower than our competitors. Like slower than 4 out of the 5 other competitors are out there. So when I pinged him again, I'm like, hey, I guess you didn't care at all, because I'm kind of negative and I'm a tester, assuming nobody cares. He's like, no, we've actually got now a head count to hire some performance engineers to look into it, right? So I think it can be very impactful if people are empowered with this information. Maybe they care about performance, maybe they don't, right? But I think that data should be available to everybody at least. So what I'm usually do is start with the technical stuff, and then we talk about how to apply it. People notice whatever, I kind of reversed it this time, because I'm kind of tired of talking about AI and machine learning, because it's hard to compete with all the marketing out there that's not AI or machine learning, but that's okay. That's the maturation and progress in the space, I think. But what I will say is interesting about what's interesting about makes this possible is that, under the hood, there is a fair amount of AI ML. There's also some hard-coded heuristics. Like one of Kevin's tests looks for bad words in your application, right? I do a screenshot, NLP, get all the words, throw it through a list of really horrible words. And if you get a bad word on your page, it flags it, and so you can determine whether you would care about it or not. That's like an example of just a quick tiny check on a page. But the cool thing is that AI and ML lets us abstract all these applications. And what that means is that when we can abstract it, right, automatically, we can get reuse. So this is the miracle that's going on that nobody's talking about. Everybody's taking AI and ML and they're like, okay, what can I do on my app, right, on my single application? The reality is that with AI and ML, if people are doing it right and it's doing what it should do, you should be able to take whatever that was generated and apply it to other applications. That's the magic. So I feel like I've even been part of the problem. I've been spending the last few years building a tool with AI hidden in it and making it look like an old tool, like an existing tool, so they don't have to deal with ramping people and they can understand how to use it, kind of hiding the AI and ML, and then have to go to test team by test team and sell it to them. And they go like, whoa, like we heard earlier yesterday. I don't know what the AI is doing. Do I trust it? Is it only 99% accurate? It gets a little exhausting after a while. And my ultimate goal personally is to test all the world's apps. You might have heard that before. It's stupid, it's crazy, kind of a fun objective. And I think it's probably going to be faster to encode the brains of Tariq into robots that do the work that they're specialized in, but use the AI ML where it's useful, most useful, take his intelligence, his human intelligence, and then reuse it across multiple applications at scale. So I think this stuff's kind of starting to work, kind of makes sense. And the two big enabling trends, which is a good sign too, is that all this AI stuff, it used to have to be done on a server, very complex, you know, pain in the butt, frankly, tons of labeling. The barriers to entry are dropping like crazy. But more importantly, this, you know, my little phone here is like on par with almost my MacBook Pro, right, in terms of CPU, especially in terms of the speed to analyze the neural nets that have already been trained. We've got AI on chips now in phones. Half your phones probably have AI chips in them, but they're completely underutilized today, right? And then also just AI, better AI models. In the last 2-3, I want to do this classic, all demo the cool AI stuff that other people have built. You can do text to video as of a couple of weeks ago. I didn't see that coming 3 months ago. So that world's speeding up. So these things are getting more and more plausible. So if you don't think, oh, there's no way to digitize Tariq's intelligence into a little bot. First of all, there's very little to convert to digital. But it's very focused and it's very good at what it does, kind of like a doorknob. But tested by time, and if he's got a kind of brass version that kills germs. But basically, you can encode that. Like if you can't believe that could happen, but you can believe you can write text and it generates a video, you're crazy. Like I feel like we're just behind. I'm behind, and this is what's coming. So I don't think the next wave is going to be more tools with AI stuck in the middle of them, or a big conglomeration of 80 different services. It's going to be simpler testing that adds testing value to the entire planet. We bring the expertise of the best testers in the world and put them into a form that's democratized. So anybody like my dad can just go tap in an app and get some basic test results. So that's what I've been hacking on and thinking about the last few months. I'll finish up with one. I'm a tester, developer, hacker, not even really developer, not a good one. But I'd love some beta testing. And this is a very meta thing, right? This is what I thought was a perfect audience here, the PNSQC, because like people can think about testing the things that test the things that test things now, right? Like how do you do that? That's a crazy question. And that's the problems that I'm struggling with right now in terms of just actual testing these things and systems and machine learning. And then lastly, if you're an expert, and there's experts here, and you've got a niche that you think you're more qualified than Tariq on, just let me know. And we can queue you up to be digitized. And that really consists now, it's very primitive, but it's kind of an interview process and encode those heuristics. And then I kind of map them onto the abstracted AI stuff. And maybe you too can get some free golf clubs every month or something like that in the future. I don't know what holds. And again, this is not commercial. I'm not doing anything else. And I'm actually, shouldn't say too much. I can't say too much actually. Let's just say I'm, yeah, this is a new approach to doing testing in the world. And so, yeah, so I'd love to have some engagement with the community. If you think it's BS, let me know. If you think it's cool and want to engage, just let me know. That's it. Cool. Yeah. Question.
Does my virtual meeting get at least citation or
I mean, in participation in the like beta testing and stuff? Okay. I usually go to think I'm going crazy, and I am a little bit, but then everybody goes like, that wasn't that crazy, like a year later. I'm actually hooking up, okay, don't throw me off the stage here, but I'm actually thinking about keeping track of everything. If you notice, to keep track of how many testers map to different apps, and also like apps to tests, and like all the kind of tracking you can imagine is behind the scenes. It sits in a local DB right now on the phone, but I just started, I'm gonna basically put all that stuff up on Solana. So those metrics are not only like preserved for famedom, but forever. So they're on a blockchain to make Angie happy. Yeah, so absolutely, like the numbers will be there, they'll be public. So how often has Tariq added value to the planet will be public. And then you can imagine, you know, if it's $1.99, actually to make Tariq happy, I put him in at $9.99 just to make him feel good, to stroke his ego. But yeah, I mean, wholly imagine some fraction of that goes back to the tester that had the value, of course. And in testing and as an expert, both. And I think it should be publicly visible. Like that's the coolest thing in the world, is to see, you know, what testers in the world are adding the most value on what apps and what are they doing, I think. Even things like which tests fail, or which testers have the apps, the results that fail most often or pass most often or are most appreciated, right? The results are 5-starred or something. Like keep track of all that in just a classic, you know, not just in a classic DB, but put it on the blockchain so anybody can query and do whatever they want with the data in any analytics. Is that cool? Yeah.
Okay, so I just got a live blog on all of this. So
Cool.
There. But other than the name is the thing that I'd love to get your take on this. You capture my actions, the things I've started out.
Yeah.
The things that I have done.
Yep.
But
Yeah, your intent on an app you've never seen, UX has never been invented.
so how did you capture
Mhm.
the actual
Advocacy. Well, actually, this is, you're hitting on the core thing, and this is like, I keep thinking about it more and more. I think there's more reinforcing loops in this actually than being just a crazy, weird idea. One is there's this interim thing, right? So there's also the other thing I'm gonna go there was the intent, right? So it's not like you could write down all the rules and heuristics that you think how a UX should be, right? And then they could be measured or quantified or something. That's one level. The one level it's been underrepresented or under communicated or demonstrated is some work I did a couple years ago where we just looked at login pages, for example. And I actually, because I indexed, I've got a ton of screenshots of stuff, right? So I can send them to you and you can go like bad, good, right? And we build a Michael Larson bot that actually can look at a UX. It's generalized. Instead of saying cat or dog, it says, pretty good design or pretty lousy design, right? And I actually I did this experiment because I thought, machines will never do that. That's the last bastion of test human expertise. The reality is the easiest one. I sent it off to Amazon, Tariq, got a bunch of labels. I'm like, is this sign-in box trustworthy or not? I thought that would be the most abstract, horrible thing. You know what the bots learned? Is that if you're in the US App Store and you have foreign language in the sign-in dialogue, people don't trust it. Like I learned something about trustworthiness, which I thought was the most abstract of all things. So AI and ML can converge and learn those rules. They reverse engineer kind of the rules that you may not even know in your head why you know that's a bad thing to do. But what you really hit at was a really good monster, which is, well, then how do you advocate this, right? Just like with performance, you can tell somebody their performance numbers are, like tell Phil he's at 1200 milliseconds, right? But does he do anything about it? But one way to motivate them is through scale, and advocacy for performance work is that and it's demonstrated already, is I show a test director that his competitors are a lot faster. Well, that gets people thinking about it, right? Gets the director of engineering and maybe even the CEO interested in performance. But even when it comes to say accessibility, guess what? What's more interesting than your virtual head popping up and going, hey, fix your crap, right? This is bad for accessibility. It's a poor design. And Michael Larson's telling you that. Not just the robot that says, hey, you've got a 0.8 out of on a scale of 0 to 1.0 score. It's Michael Larson saying, hey, I've judged it. This is my brain, my value add, and I'm telling you it sucks, versus a random person off the street or a random robot that just has console output. Is that? Well, I think you're right on. You're starting to see these. Yeah, exactly. You're starting to see that, and that's at the edge of my thinking.
You might get a kick out of this.
Yeah.
10 years ago, if somebody were to tell me, hey, guess what?
Right. Yeah. 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 Right. And in AI, like I was at a conference, a little panel thing a month ago or 2 months ago. And I said something like, we're talking about like, text to image. And we're like, oh, that's cool. I could say, Pokemon, this Pokemon fighting another Pokemon or whatever. And it generates a kind of a fuzzy image. And we're like, that's cool. And I mentioned like AI is moving so fast, right? It's not just Moore's law. Things are accelerating faster than that. And so I said, sometime in the future, and I wouldn't even commit to it, right? And I'm the optimist in this stuff. I said, sometime in the future, next couple of years, maybe you'll be able to like type something in and a video will come out. 2 or 3 weeks later, Meta launches their text to video, and you've got a bear painting a picture of itself, right? Like the stuff is moving faster than we realize, especially I think in the testing community. And you're exactly right. We're on exponential curves for progress and improvement. So, and I can't even keep up. So this rate of progress will continue, and it just more of what we dream could happen will actually probably be enabled and happen. And the work I'm doing has been enabled by new models in just the last 18 months. I'm using a lot of new stuff that just came on the last 18 months. But yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So you could all start,
I tried to use Tariq to humble it down a little bit. Yeah.
and let's say that somebody has
Mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
I want to think back.
Mhm.
How does that back end thinking?
So I wasn't able to push the conference thing over the mobile phone, but call it mobile phone, mobile telecommunications device. But my thinking on that, and actually what I'm starting to use to do the training of the own in terms of default bots they're built in. One is, guess what? It's really easy to create a profile on Twitter, right? So add bot, take your picture of your selfie, and now you're a virtual bot for fun. It's kind of that easy to get at least that indication. But then there's a training mode. So you can go in a training mode and then it opens up a browser. And it kind of leverages, like we had a great talk yesterday about kind of replay and recording replays kind of coming back now that technologies are fixing all the problems with it. So it's like a record and replay scenario recorder in the app. So you can go in and create your profile and you can just record and it will replay that stuff like you classically expect, but it uses AI and ML behind the scenes. So it's probable, not all the time, but it's probable that could also be reused in other apps inside your corporation or other apps with your customers or other apps, like if you're a vendor or something like that, or just, other scenarios inside of your enterprise. So that's a twinkle in the eye right now. It's not like productized in any way. That's my thought is that going down that path. And guess what happens though? I think it should be a free marketplace. Like Tariq talks a lot. We'll see if he actually knows what he's doing. I guarantee there's some dude that or lady in Alexa. There's some lady in Atlanta that will do better microservices testing for Amazon specific APIs or something, right? And she'll be a better bot. Well, she should be able to publish her knowledge in a reusable format in like a marketplace. And then people that have that specific application, or if they can pick, like, here's the performance people, right? Here's the API testing people, sorry. And there's Tariq and her and a few other people. And maybe you want a little of Tariq and some of her and definitely not this guy, like Chris. And Chris doesn't know what he's doing. So I don't want to include him. And then you can star rate those people over time. So kind of like a marketplace for that, but where people can simply upload their little areas of expertise. And if the community finds it useful, that's awesome. If not, it gets filtered out. It's kind of my thinking on that. But that doesn't exist today, that marketplace or the custom kind of bot creation. I hand code the bots basically today for the most part. That answer the question? Cool. Yeah. Yeah, you. Yes. 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 Oh, and may I ask what app you work on? What tool you work on? Headlamp. Okay. Cool. Cool. Mm-hmm.
So let's say bot action knows what we can use.
Mm-hmm.
Customer and you actually here's
Yeah. Yes. So yeah. So I have two bad thoughts. They're kind of equivalent. One is it could be like exactly. So it could be like in-app consulting, like an expert kind of thing on demand a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't know how to say this. There are other applications I've heard that connect people that want to work with a particular expert on video chat, and they're making a fair amount of money at it. So my bet is that will probably emerge exactly in the community too at some point. I'm surprised it hasn't yet. I used to work at UTest, and that's what we kind of did, was connect people with companies, but we didn't directly connect them. But I think that'd be an interesting app in the future. But yeah, it'd be awesome in here. You know, Tariq says, the bot says you got some failures. You can double click in there and what's your rate? I don't know, $8.99 an hour. Yeah, that was not free. Emotional damage. But yeah, and Tariq could set his own price or something and do kind of a consult or something. I think it's interesting possibility in the future. Yeah, it's totally enabled and you can do it all mobile. And he could decide to accept or reject those. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Anything else, Chris? Do you have any?
I just want to point out that I am confident.
Yeah. And what? Quick, don't make me, I'll bring it to a vote. Cool. Anything online? Or Phil's abandoned, or Tariq's abandoned the online folks? Or they couldn't hear anything? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Another company, same thing. How can I, like, when I want to share my report into the pool, I don't want to read saying, hey, you're so better.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I might want to control whether it's data.
So 100%. So there's I call it offline because I spent 10 minutes while I was watching The Bachelorette or something doing it. But there's like a flag and it doesn't push any data off the machine at all. But what's interesting is that PNSQC is a public website. So another conference can still crawl his website and get a lot of test results. So the cool thing is this enables, and people don't realize, is that you can test other websites. Like it's cost prohibitive today, right? For any but like the Ubers and the Googles and stuff of the world. But if you drop the barrier to entry and the cost and time low enough, people might be able to do competitive analysis. So if you have a public facing website, people could still test your site and publish the results, right? But if it's an internal corp app or it's private, not deployed or something like that, absolutely all this stuff can stay on device or just not even recorded on the device.
You change your mind later to
Yeah, if I had any engineer help, but yeah, absolutely, yeah. You like just because it does save locally, you just could push back up to the cloud and sync kind of thing. But like see if it's good and then okay, I'll push, right? Yeah. Yes. Sure. Number one is probably go, and I did want to focus on this, but the committee wouldn't let me get through it. I'm giving the preamble. Where are we? Testing toroid. So the question is, how can somebody get started with a testing toroid? Is that what you're saying? How can we learn more? So one is you can go to a local swimming pool. Two is you can take your pyramid, stretch it into a circle with some basic geometric transformations, and then rotate it in 3 space, and it generates a toroid. I think you made up the question, Tariq. Okay, yeah. So to be clear, that was a joke because they'll probably be like, man, Jason's getting really whack. Or actually the saddest thing, it'll probably start a thing with different 3-dimensional pyramids of testing. And actually, this is interesting. Actually, there's a relevant point to the pyramid I was thinking about is it does kind of help invert that pyramid because APIs require engineers and time and access to the code. There's a lot of barriers to entry. The stuff at the top of the pyramid is usually harder to build, but AI makes the top of the pyramid easier to build and maintain, ironically. So it doesn't really flip the pyramid upside down. I think it makes it a tower. Kind of BS'd about that before. But yeah, no toroids for you, Tariq. That's like an alliteration, right? It's the Tariq toroid. We should name it that, and then, yeah.